Welcome to RSAC 2025 at the Protect AI booth. My name is Charlie McCarthy. I'm one of your MLSecOps Community Leaders, and today I have the distinct honor and privilege of being joined by John Sotiropoulos and Ron F. Del Rosario, who are co-chairs of the OWASP Agentic AI Initiative. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Charlie. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So to get started, we're here mainly to talk about the OWASP initiative and other topics related to agentic AI security. Could we level set for listeners about, first of all, how would you describe or define this term agentic AI that I think the industry is still working very hard to come together on a term? And how is it different from, would you say, traditional software or even standalone LLMs?
That's a great question. When we started the initiative as we're getting out the top 10 for LLMs version 2, the 2025, and there was that kind of conversation. And I think the line we draw is this: if you have an LLM application that just brings output that you review, but it doesn't really take any action, it doesn't orchestrate any tools, that's an LLM application. The minute you start invoking tools, you start kind of making calendar appointments, driving autonomous cars, like I used the Waymo here.
Yeah.
That's an agentic application. And that's where we thought, well, actually, it's a layer of sophistication above that, and we need to pay attention to that, no?
Yeah, and just to add on that, John, I think we're starting to see emerging applications, LLM applications, they have a certain level of autonomy, right? So it's either they're fully autonomous, or they have semi-autonomy, wherein they can decide which tools to invoke or which data source to connect to be able to answer a specific question from a user or how to solve a specific problem, right? So we're seeing those the emergence of those applications. This is why John and I decided, so we need to start a new workstream inside OWASP Gen AI Security Project, which specifically focuses on agentic applications powered by LLM at the back end.
And just to add to that, many people said, isn't it too early? And perhaps it is. However, because, people explore, but we need to engage in that dialogue of what agentic AI is, and maybe we don't have all the answers, understand the security challenges ahead of adversaries and ahead of people that will perhaps produce misinformation. So that's why we decided to go ahead with that.
Right. And hopefully throughout all of this process, it will help the industry kind of standardize that definition of what agentic AI is. Yeah. Okay. Can you tell us a bit about high-level overview of the OWASP Agentic Security Initiative and what its goals are?
The Agentic Security Initiative aims to produce authoritative, peer-reviewed guidelines that define what the threats and mitigations are. How can you do threat modeling for agentic AI, because it's slightly different because of the autonomy and other factors there. And how do you mitigate that? And finally, what's the landscape? Because it's okay for us to tell people, oh, you need to do this and you need to do that. If there aren't any tools out there like Protect AI, it will be very challenging for them to protect agentic AI. So that's the kind of the work that we do.
And just to add on that, the guidance that we're producing, they're very practical. So we're not shooting for deep research materials. We wanted our materials to be super practical for all the AppSec engineers, for all the security engineers, for all the developers, so they can easily follow it as they develop their own agentic applications.
Because there is so much research paper and there's so much slideware and even ChatGPT generated thought these days. So we thought we need to keep ourselves honest. And Ron came up with this fantastic idea. He said, hold on a sec. We're producing those documents. Why don't we have code examples? So we also have and I cannot take the credit for that. That's Ron's creation. We have led now by a lady, Ali Howe, who we love. And it's samples of all the threats and mitigations that we've published. You can go and find the code and see it in action, how it works. So there is no BS in that, what we publish.
Yeah, it's called the Insecure Agents.
Okay.
We have a public repo for it through OWASP, and anyone can download, so they know how not to make agents, right? Because these are deliberately insecure applications, agentic applications, to demonstrate the risk and how easy it is to develop insecure agentic applications. So this is why we created this as a reference for developers.
And it's easier to find, if you're a developer, I think it's much easier to go and see the code rather than read 50 pages of descriptions of threats and mitigations.
100%. Yes. Okay, let's dive into some of the technical stuff and spend some time talking about, you mentioned threat modeling and some of the goals of this initiative. One of the ideas that's cropped up within the community when we're talking about security for agentic AI systems is it's almost this convergence of MLSecOps and DevSecOps, because not only in these systems are you dealing with AI software, but depending on the other types of tools that they're communicating with, there is also traditional software. And so it kind of expands the blast radius exponentially.
Exactly.
What are some of the key risk categories that the working group is seeing in agentic systems?
I think, I would say agentic AI takes some of the key AI threats that we have and elevates them and augments them with different complexity. Take, for instance, poisoning that you normally have in an LLM or other application of a model.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, agents have memory. So you can start poisoning that and affect how an agent will react to certain prompts. You can use prompt injection to change the goal. You can even emphasize the goal so much that for instance, if you tell an agent, make sure you focus on profitability and at the expense of safety, the agent actually will override that. So those are the things that we're looking, and autonomy is a key. And Ron, you have been talking about autonomy. Do you want to kind of
correct.
chime in?
So I think it's very important for developers, security teams, and architects to understand the agency level of these agentic applications. The fundamental difference between traditional LLM applications and agents is agents, they have a level of agency. They can be fully autonomous or semi-autonomy, right? But what we need to understand as security practitioners is understanding the agency level, so we know where to inspect a specific breakpoint. What I'm talking about is understanding the path the agents took to decide why did it invoke this tool, and how it was able to access the information to solve a specific problem for a user. It's called traceability.
Yeah.
Right? So it's very important for autonomous applications to have this capability, so it helps developers debug. But what's more important is, from a security perspective, we can do incident management. We can understand what went wrong for this agentic application to make that decision. So it's very important to understand traceability.
And I think, just to add to that, to the autonomy. So as we know from LLM applications, they're not deterministic, they're stochastic, whatever the terms are, which means you ask it once to do A and it comes out with B, next time it will come with C. So, it has a mind of its own, which is fine if you ask it to arrange your calendar application, but it's not so fine if you ask it to drive a car. It's not so fine if you ask it to drive medical equipment. So you need to work out what the risks are, and you develop what we call an adaptive and risk-based decision making, so that you don't have the human to always make the decision, because if you do that, then you defeat the whole point of having agents.
Right.
So it's fundamentally it's how do we scale AI? That's what agents asked us to answer.
Right. Yeah, you make a really good point. Something that will be really interesting to see moving forward, AI has been developing at this breakneck pace over the last couple years, and the adoption rate has also kind of been skyrocketing. And so we'll begin to see, someone made a really good point yesterday about how agentic AI kind of comes in different tiers in terms of what autonomy is there. So if you think of the path of autonomous vehicles, at first they were self-driving and they had certain levels of autonomy, but they couldn't just, drive you around. And then gradually we gave over more and more of what would have been these human tasks to these vehicles. And you're starting to see adoption of various tiers of agentic AI systems in vehicles, in the healthcare industry, with things, these systems helping doctors maybe make more rapid diagnoses and saving lives. You see them in home and lifestyle management systems. The adoption almost seems to be outpacing the security considerations.
Yeah.
And so when we think about that, do you have recommendations for organizations who maybe are adopting some of these things into their industries without the security consideration, and then maybe are looking back and are like, oh, you know what? We should probably take a look at what this is doing on the back end. Does the initiative talk about, certain threat taxonomies or OWASP style guidance that orgs should be looking at?
We talk about that. We had a nice panel yesterday at the OWASP AI Summit, and we said there will be This is a fast evolving market. So new things will come always. Kind of people talk about MCP, they talk about A2A.
Yeah.
More and more will come out. What we need to make sure to follow that trajectory is to focus on the fundamentals. So even before you start worrying about the levels of autonomy, and sometimes that is a little bit common sense. So if I allow my LLM to drive critical infrastructure, then I deserve what I get. But even before I get to that point, how do I control my data? Is my AI secured? Those are the fundamental, the baseline things that we need to have. And then, experiment and evaluate. And in some cases, actually, you may need the agent in the loop. So it isn't always humans that do better than the agents. If you look at medical diagnosis, for instance, all the experiments show that AI does better than a doctor. So we will find those ways of combining that autonomy. But the first, the fundamental, the level field is the basics of AI security.
Yeah, absolutely, John. So I think my response is a good segue to John's viewpoint. Is I have this acronym for organizations adopting AI. It's visibility, understanding, and traceability. Right. So I think it's very important for security engineering teams to have visibility in all these AI projects, like starting in their organization. Right. That's number one, because I'm from an AppSec team, and most of the time we're the last team to know that there's a new AI project. So we need to do threat modeling or security review. That's a no-no. We need to be part of the discussion day one.
Yeah.
So that's the visibility. At the same time, I think it's important for security teams to understand what problem is this AI system trying to solve, right? The business contexts are on it. It's very important for security teams. And then understanding. Now, understanding is a critical piece for security teams, because this is the part where we decompose the technology stack behind this AI system. Are we using open source frameworks? Are we developing our own AI agentic system? Are we using a vendor to design this AI system for us? Is it managed? Right? Once we have that understanding of the technology stack, we can easily create a threat model, right? And then traceability, which is always it's my favorite recommendation when adopting AI systems in an organization. It's very important for security teams, no matter how big or small the security teams, to always have the capability to have an X-ray. It's like an X-ray of how this agent was able to decide to answer this question or solve a specific problem. Right? It's important from a debugging functionality. It's important from a security incident perspective. Right? It's very important for humans to be always in the loop.
Yep.
To be able to trace the decision path of an agent. So visibility, understanding, and traceability.
And that's a great point that you're making there about threat modeling. Yes, of course, we need to have the fundamentals in place, but not all the threats will be applicable to you. So having that conversation from an early stage isn't just good for security. So it isn't just, let's make sure we have secure by design, which is important. It's also helping the business, because instead of over-engineering and gold-plating controls that they don't need, if you have that conversation as early as possible, then the risk is visible, and then all of a sudden cybersecurity or AI security becomes an enabler, not a blocker. And that's something that we need to find. That's something that we need to fine-tune and make sure that leaders embrace it. And that's something that also tools help us do and products help us do, because they accelerate AI security adoption.
Yeah, let me add something on that. I think that's a good point. We need to let developers enjoy playing around with AI, right? Or else we're going to stifle innovation, or we're gonna act as blockers. Oh, I'm not going to play with AI because security team is going to block me.
Yeah.
Right? It's not going to happen. So we need to hit that Goldilocks zone between security and innovation, like how John explained it, right? So security is going to be part of the journey, but we're not going to stop. We're not going to automatically stop developers playing around with AI, because we need to. Everyone needs it to be able to compete in the marketplace.
And in fact, at OWASP we say, if you don't use AI, that's a vulnerability. Because if you don't do, some other people will, and you will not be prepared. So just kind of, and I told you, we think so alike. At the organization level of what Ron was saying, as an organization, don't run away from the risk, because you're not really, you're just kind of postponing it. Don't be a cowboy of not taking any action. Just find that balancing act. Use security as the confidence to innovate.
Yeah, excellent wisdom and insights. Did you have something to add?
No, that's good.
Okay.
We always compliment each other. That's nice.
We could keep going back and forth. Coming back to the OWASP Agentic Security Initiative a bit, can you talk about the roadmap for that group for the rest of the year, maybe what you're hoping to achieve, and also how individuals can get involved, including what types of individuals you're hoping to bring into that working group or some of the work, particular types of experts that would be helpful to the cause?
Yeah. Okay, so we have published a roadmap that's available on our website. We started with the threats and mitigations that's highly recommended to everyone to read. It sets, in very simple terms, what we think agentic AI is, and then some of the key threats and mitigations. As part of the initiative, I haven't mentioned that we have innovated at how we bring the industry together. So we have what we call the Distinguished Experts Review Board. So the community collaborates and creates the document, but then we have Apostol Vasile from NIST, we have Hiram Anderson, we have Chris Hugh, we have people from the Alan Turing Institute in the UK. They review it and then we publish it. And that raises the bar. We've done that with the first one. Microsoft has referenced that they've just issued the paper themselves, so we're working with them to consolidate. That's a key priority. We don't create a Babel of standards. We've also released Ken Huang's and another group how to do threat modeling, and now we're about to release how to secure, what kind of controls you need to have, and then finally we have the landscape which describes products like your good self there, and compliance, governance, those kind of things. And we're very proud to announce that Ron and I have started a new working group within the initiative, and that's the research and rapid response.
Oh, wonderful.
Things happen, you can't wait for us to complete the reviews and everything. So we have this kind of initiative now where we publish papers very rapidly, like briefing notes, and then we incorporate them into our work.
Absolutely. Just to add context, I think this new work stream, we call it the Agentic Security Research work stream. It's still part of the OWASP Agentic Security Initiative, and we're inviting volunteers from any organization. It doesn't matter what your background is, as long as you can contribute and collaborate. And what we're trying to do is produce research papers that are not only practical, but also forward-thinking. Because what John and I are predicting, and the rest of the members of the OWASP Agentic Security Initiative, is sooner or later we're going to have inter-agent communication, right? It's going to be, let's say, Protect AI has their own agents, and it can directly communicate to another vendor's agent, right? It's because of agent-to-agent protocol, and most likely there's going to be a new set of protocols that we need to understand from a security perspective, and we're trying to be ahead of the game. We have 2 papers now in draft, ready for review, and it's going to be published soon, but it's all going to focus on agentic security, agentic protocols, and how to secure them and the architecture around them. So we can't predict the future, but we know where it's headed.
You're looking around the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. A couple quick hot takes before I check to see if anyone has some questions. What is keeping each of you up at night about agentic AI? It could be one word, one sentence. Like, what's most concerning for you right now from a security perspective based on the work that you've seen within the group?
The pace of change, and the reluctance to talk about it because it's something new. We need to have that conversation, otherwise other people will shape the security, and we need to be at the forefront of this.
So my take on it is security engineering teams are not data scientists and machine learning engineers. So we still need that push from a foundational education perspective or awareness. So this has been my focus in the past 2 years, specifically with my team, because we may have the best AppSec teams and red teams, but we don't have background. Traditionally, we don't have background in data science and machine learning. So we need to drive conversation towards awareness, because it's impossible for security teams to secure AI systems if they don't understand the foundational technology stack at the back end. So it's very important to send your security teams in training. They need to be exposed to the threat models with agentic systems and traditional ML systems versus agentic systems. They need to understand the difference in the threat model. So when So when there's an organizational push that you're developing an agentic system, they know which area to look into from a priority perspective. Not everything is a priority, right? So they need to focus on the top 3, top 5, and this is where, in my opinion and John's opinion, that where the document that we publish through OWASP, the Agentic Security Threats and Mitigations document, can act as a guide reference material for security teams.
And that's our mission, really, to democratize AI security. I completely agree with Ron there. I did my first AI security project before LLMs. I'm so old. And I went back to my capability and I said, oh, these are some best practices. And someone said, what's a notebook? And then I thought,
Jupyter notebook. Yeah.
well, you know what? And that's fair enough because the guy is doing cybersecurity. So unless you, and that's the reason I wrote my book. Because I thought, my goodness, if we don't know what we are securing, how are we going to secure? So I think there are different layers of education. We need cybersecurity people to understand what they're securing. And then there is all the great work that OWASP and other organizations are doing so that people are aware of what they're securing.
100%, John.
Okay, just to wrap up here, moving away from security, but more generally speaking about AI and your experience this week at RSAC, any interesting insights or takeaways that you'd like to share with folks as far as what's caught your eye this week, hallway conversations, what you're most excited about for generative AI and agentic systems moving forward?
I think, and I'm going to flatter you guys, I think the most exciting thing that's happening is how the AI security product market is consolidating, and congratulations for the acquisition. If anything, what that means, apart obviously, from great careers for all of you, not that you don't have now, is that all the big players now thinking very seriously about AI security and incorporating that as part of the product lines. We will always have this innovation. God forbid that we ever stopped. I believe in security, but I don't want to go back to Stone Age. I want people to innovate. We just need to be that balancing act. Say, well, these are the risks. Let's have a conversation. And that's my take from this conference this year.
That's a good one, John. I think my take on it, Charlie, is I think in the next few years, AI security will be number one. It will be a number one topic for organizations everywhere, because what's happening is we're seeing an expanding universe for these AI agents.
Yeah.
We started at the enterprise where agents have visibility with enterprise data, browser. Now we're seeing expanding it with agents that can have visibility on the desktop. Now I think what's going to happen in the near future is it's going to expand all the way to the physical space.
Yeah.
Right? We're seeing a rise in large vision models. Mm-hmm. Basically, these are large language models, but they're running on robots or robotics. They have vision. They can see the environment, and they can decide how to act based on the environment that they're seeing. Right? I think that's what's coming next. So we started with traditional AI. Now we're Gen AI. Now we have agentic AI. I think I think the intersection of AI and the physical world it's coming next.
Yeah.
So of course, every stage you need better and better security across the stage, or else it won't happen. Right?
And this 100%. This ubiquitousness of AI raises new problems. So I'll give you an example. I was on a Waymo car taking me somewhere, and all of a sudden it just freezes, and I have the screenshot to prove, parks on the side, locks me in, and kind of doesn't move. And then all of a sudden there is an operator saying, well, we need to review the footage to see what's happening.
John, was it a human in the loop?
And that was a human in the loop. And what they said is, there was a cyclist that touched accidentally the car, and the model freaked out.
Oh.
So when you start having those things, kind of fantastic experience on the Waymo car. I couldn't fault them. I really love that. But it just illustrates, to your point, Ron, that as we start having systems beyond the data center, we need to think of different things there.
Yeah, the security considerations expand. Okay, wonderful. Well, again, it's been such a pleasure to have both of you here, to get to see you in person, wishing you much success with the OWASP Agentic Security Initiative and other initiatives that you're involved in throughout the course of the year, and can't wait to see what comes next.
Thank you very much. And
thank you, Charlie. Appreciate it.
My point always, we're all the community. We all need to keep talking. So thank you very much for the invite today.
Very welcome. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.